Welcome back to the channel, basketball aficionados and die-hard Los Angeles Lakers fans. Today, we are embarking on a massive, unprecedented deep dive into what is undeniably the most polarizing, dramatic, and fundamentally paradigm-shifting offseason in the modern history of the Los Angeles Lakers franchise. For decades, the Lakers organization has been absolutely synonymous with the glamorous, star-studded concept of the Big Three. From the legendary Showtime era of Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and James Worthy, to the early 2000s dominance, and right to the most recent championship windows, this franchise has historically hunted for marquee, globally recognized superstar triumvirates to ensure that championship banners continue to hang in the rafters of the Crypto.com arena. But as we sit here in the chaotic, completely unpredictable summer of 2026, the entire basketball landscape has been fundamentally tilted on its axis. The traditional, expected blueprint of the Lakers' Big Three has been entirely turned on its head, and the global basketball community is absolutely losing its collective mind over the results. Instead of conventional, heavily anticipated Big Three, the Los Angeles Lakers have aggressively formed what prominent national media figures, most notably the always vocal Stephen A. Smith, are aggressively and controversially dubbing the White Three. Yes, you heard that correctly. In an absolutely historic offseason characterized by the shocking, epic-ending departure of LeBron James, the Los Angeles Lakers front office, spearheaded by general manager Rob Pelinka and head coach J.J. Redick, have executed a ruthless, methodical dismantling of their previous core to build a completely new foundation. They have pushed all their chips to the center of the table built around a newly solidified, highly scrutinized trio. The generational superstar Luka Doncic, the relentlessly ascending Austin Reeves, and their massive, newly acquired defensive anchor, Walker Kessler. The sheer magnitude of this pivot cannot be overstated. When LeBron James officially informed the Lakers that he would not be returning, bringing a definitive end to an incredible 8-year chapter in Los Angeles, a massive power vacuum was immediately created. Many franchises would have crumbled under the immense, suffocating weight of losing a Mount Rushmore-level talent. There were genuine fears that the Lakers might spiral into an agonizing multi-year rebuild, a period of irrelevance that this fan base simply does not tolerate. However, Rob Pelinka refused to let the organization sink into the abyss. Instead, he recognized that the keys to the kingdom now exclusively belonged to Luka Doncic. Doncic, who arrived in Los Angeles and immediately took on the immense burden of carrying his historic franchise, needed a roster tailor-made to his incredibly unique, heliocentric style of play. And to do that, the Lakers had to make incredibly painful, deeply unpopular decisions. They had to sever ties with established veterans, fan favorites, and key contributors. This brings us to the most shocking subplot of this entire saga. To pave the way for this controversial new trio, the Lakers engaged in a massive roster purge. The absolute foundational pieces of last year's playoff run were systematically removed from the equation. Marcus Smart, the gritty, defensive heartbeat of the perimeter. Rui Hachimura, the elite floor spacer and incredibly efficient playoff scorer. Luke Kennard, the absolute sniper from beyond the arc. All three of these highly capable, heavily relied upon veterans were shown the door. They were entirely removed from the Los Angeles Lakers' future plans. Why? Why would a team that just battled in the playoffs voluntarily hemorrhage so much proven talent? Why let Hachimura walk to the hallway rival Los Angeles Clippers for absolutely nothing in return? Why let Marcus Smart take his defensive pedigree to the Houston Rockets? Why allow Luke Kennard to join the explosive Phoenix Suns? And how did this massive exodus directly lead to the formation of the Doncic, Reeves, and Kessler trio that has Stephen A. Smith publicly questioning the Lakers' entire organizational philosophy? The answers to these questions are layered, highly complex, and rooted in the harsh, unforgiving financial realities of the new NBA collective bargaining agreement, combined with J.J. Redick's hyper-specific tactical vision for maximizing Luka Doncic. Today, we're going to unpack every single detail, every hidden motive, and every tactical nuance behind the formation of this new era. We will break down exactly why Smart, Rui, and Kennard were definitively removed, how Walker Kessler became the ultimate prize, and whether this heavily criticized, newly formed trio actually possesses the basketball purity to lead the Los Angeles Lakers back to the promised land. Buckle up, because this is the ultimate, definitive breakdown of the wildest offseason in recent Lakers history. Let us begin by addressing the incredibly loud, inescapable elephant in the room: the formation of this new trio and the subsequent media firestorm that has engulfed the Los Angeles Lakers. When the Lakers executed a blockbuster trade with the Utah Jazz, sending away their unprotected first-round picks in 2031 and 2033, along with pick swaps in 2028 and 2030, to acquire the restricted free agent center Walker Kessler, the basketball world stood entirely still. Kessler was immediately signed to a massive 4-year, $130 million contract. This was a massive, franchise-altering commitment. It cemented a core of Luke Kennard, Austin Reeves, and Walker Kessler. Almost immediately, Stephen A. Smith took to national airwaves and delivered a blistering, absolutely viral critique. He loudly questioned the Lakers' direction, explicitly calling out the optics and the historical precedent, stating, and I quote, "Where the hell do the Los Angeles Lakers think they're going with a bunch of white dudes? Your top 3 players are white dudes. Really? This ain't golf. This ain't baseball? In NBA history, when have you seen your 3 most prominent players on a basketball team all be white, and that takes you to the promised land?" This incredibly polarizing commentary ignited a massive cultural and sporting debate. But if we strip away the sheer sensationalism of the television graphics and screaming matches on morning sports shows, we have to look at the pure, unadulterated basketball fit. Rob Pelinka did not assemble this trio for optics. He assembled this trio because of pure, systemic synergy. Luke Kennard is arguably the most brilliant, entirely unguardable offensive engine in the modern game. But to maximize a heliocentric maestro like Doncic, you need very specific archetypes surrounding him. You need a secondary ball handler and creator who does not demand isolation touches, someone who can efficiently play off the ball, shoot the lights out, and make secondary reads against a rotating defense. Enter Austin Reeves, who has just been locked up on a lucrative long-term deal. Reeves is the absolute perfect complementary guard to Doncic, possessing a high basketball IQ and a relentless motor. But more importantly, Doncic needs an elite, rim-running, lob-catching, shot-blocking anchor in the paint. We saw Doncic reach the NBA Finals back in 2024 with Dallas because he had Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively II. Walker Kessler is the absolute evolution of that archetype. Over his career, Kessler has proven to be one of the most terrifying, statistically dominant rim protectors since the moment he entered the league. He is a phenomenal pick-and-roll partner. So, while the media focuses on a controversial moniker, the Lakers front office sees a perfectly balanced, meticulously engineered triad designed specifically to dominate the pick-and-roll, space the floor, and protect the paint at an elite level, but to create the financial flexibility and the roster spots necessary to commit $130 million to Walker Kessler, to lock in Austin Reeves, and to absorb the staggering financial realities of Luka Doncic's presence. The Lakers had to make incredibly brutal sacrifices. They had to completely gut the supporting cast that fans had grown to love. This brings us to the shocking removal of Rui Hachimura, Marcus Smart, and Luke Kennard. Let us dive deep into the specific, calculated reasons why each of these players was deemed entirely expendable by the Lakers' brain trust. First, let us examine the baffling case of Rui Hachimura. This is perhaps a departure that stings a fan base the absolute most. Hachimura was an absolute revelation for the Lakers in the playoffs. During the regular season, he averaged 11.5 points while shooting an incredibly efficient 51% from the field and an astounding 44.3% from three-point range. In the playoffs, he elevated his game even further, becoming the team's most efficient scorer, averaging 17.5 points on nearly 57% shooting from beyond the arc. He was a core part of J.J. Redick's offensive schemes, utilizing his size to exploit mismatches and perfectly spacing the floor. Yet, the Lakers simply let him walk away. They did not even engage in a sign-in trade. They watched as he signed a 2-year, $28 million contract with their direct hallway rivals, the Los Angeles Clippers. Why on earth would the Lakers allow an elite, 28-year-old shot maker to leave for absolutely nothing? The answer lies in the harsh realities of the NBA's new, incredibly punitive salary cap aprons. The Lakers made a definitive organizational choice. They could not afford to tie up $14 million annually in a player whose primary elite skill is mid-range scoring and spot-up shooting, especially when they knew they needed to allocate massive resources to secure a top-tier center like Walker Kessler. Furthermore, while Hachimura is an incredible offensive talent, there were lingering internal concerns regarding his lateral quickness and defensive versatility against elite, explosive wings in the Western Conference. J.J. Redick's new defensive philosophy demands hypermobile, multi-positional defenders. Hachimura, despite his offensive brilliance, was viewed as a slight defensive liability in switch-heavy schemes. By letting him walk, the Lakers avoided a long-term financial commitment that would have completely paralyzed their ability to operate under the hard cap, directly enabling the Kessler acquisition. Next, we moved to the departure of the heart and soul of the perimeter defense, Marcus Smart. When Smart originally arrived in Los Angeles, actively recruited by Luke Kennard himself, it felt like a match made in heaven. The Lakers desperately needed a point-of-attack bulldog, someone who could take on the most grueling defensive assignments and provide championship-level toughness. Smart delivered precisely that, carving out a massive role and immediately becoming a vocal leader in the locker room. However, as the offseason approached, Smart held a $5.4 million player option, and reports clearly indicated that he was seeking a significant raise and a multi-year contract to secure his long-term future. The Lakers simply looked at the board and made a cold, calculated evaluation. Marcus Smart is aging. His body has endured thousands of hard collisions, dives on the floor, and grueling defensive possessions. His offensive game, particularly his wildly inconsistent three-point shooting, creates massive spacing issues when paired with a heliocentric player like Doncic. In the modern NBA, if your point guard cannot consistently punish defenses from deep, the floor completely shrinks. The Lakers ultimately decided that committing long-term, guaranteed money to an aging, offensively limited guard was a massive risk they could not afford to take. They needed shooting, and they needed youth. Consequently, they stepped aside, allowing Smart to take his talents to the Houston Rockets. It was a purely analytical decision, prioritizing long-term offensive flow over gritty, but decaying defensive nostalgia. Heavy sports +1. Finally, we have the exit of Luke Kennard. Kennard was brought in at the trade deadline and made a tremendous, immediate impact. When injuries decimated the roster, Kennard stepped up, averaging 11.5 points and shooting a blistering 47.4% from three-point territory in the postseason. He was a quintessential sharpshooter, the exact type of player who theoretically thrives alongside the unbelievable passing vision of Luka Doncic. Kennard openly expressed his deep desire to make Los Angeles his long-term home. So why was he removed? Why let one of the most lethal perimeter shooters in the entire association walk to the Phoenix Suns? The reasoning here is a direct reflection of the Lakers' obsession with building a robust, impenetrable defense. While Kennard's defensive gravity is undeniable, he is a massive, highly exploitable target on the defensive end of the floor. In the playoffs, opposing teams actively, ruthlessly hunted Kennard in pick-and-roll situations, forcing him to switch onto explosive scorers and completely compromising the Lakers' entire defensive shell. The front office realized that having elite shooting is entirely negated if that same player bleeds points on the other end. To beat the elite teams in the West, you cannot have a glaring defensive weak link on the floor during crunch time. The Lakers chose to prioritize two-way versatility over singular, one-dimensional shooting brilliance. Heavy sports. In summary, the removal of Smart, Rui, and Kennard was not an accident. It was not a failure of negotiations. It was a deliberate, highly calculated, and incredibly ruthless purging of the roster. Rob Pelinka and J.J. Redick looked at the devastating playoff exit against the Oklahoma City Thunder and realized that minor tweaks would absolutely not be enough. They needed a total schematic revolution. They removed Hachimura to maintain ultimate financial flexibility and avoid the luxury tax aprons. They removed Smart because his offensive limitations and aging profile conflicted with the need for pristine spacing around Doncic. And they removed Kennard because his defensive liabilities rendered him unplayable in the most critical, high-leverage playoff moments. The old core was entirely swept away to perfectly isolate and empower the newly crowned front line. As we looked at the horizon of the incredibly highly anticipated 2026 to 2027 NBA season, The Los Angeles Lakers stand at the absolute precipice of a defining, incredibly fascinating era. The sheer audacity of Rob Pelinka's master plan cannot be ignored. In the span of a single chaotic week, he managed to entirely, completely subtract the remnants of the LeBron James era, absorb massive financial commitments into a younger, highly defined, and structurally cohesive supporting cast, and handed Luke Kennard the exact hyper-specific type of roster he has historically thrived with. The departure of Marcus Smart, Rui Hachimura, and Luke Kennard will undeniably leave a massive emotional void for a fan base that had grown attached to their contributions. There will undoubtedly be nights in the middle of January where the Lakers desperately miss Hachimura's incredibly smooth mid-range pull-up, or Smart's chaotic momentum-shifting defensive dives, or Kennard's absolute pure, net-splashing shooting strokes. But the reality of the National Basketball Association is that sentimental attachments do not win championships. Cold, calculated, structural synergies do. The intense, blazing spotlight now firmly, overwhelmingly rests entirely on the shoulders of this newly formed, highly scrutinized trio. Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, and Walker Kessler are now the undisputed, absolute pillars of the Los Angeles Lakers franchise. They will face a level of relentless media scrutiny, endless tactical analysis, and immense pressure that is entirely unique to the purple and gold. Every single pick and roll, every single defensive rotation, and every single shot attempt will be wildly dissected by analysts like Stephen A. Smith, who are already circling like sharks, waiting for this unprecedented experiment to show the slightest crack. Can a core heavily relying on Doncic's incredible, unmatched usage rate, Reeves' secondary playmaking, and Kessler's purely traditional rim protection survive the incredibly grueling, incredibly versatile gauntlet of the Western Conference? Will the massive, high-stakes gamble of giving up totally unprotected draft picks deep into the next decade to secure a defensive anchor ultimately be validated by a deep, glorious playoff run? Or will it be remembered as a massive, catastrophic overpay that completely mortgaged the franchise's future for flawed, unworkable vision? Ultimately, the answers to these incredibly massive questions will only be revealed on hardwood. The Lakers have firmly placed their bets. They have completely ripped off the proverbial Band-Aid. They have entirely rejected the traditional, superstar-laden Big Three model in favor of a highly specialized, tightly constructed, stylistically cohesive basketball machine. They have unapologetically embraced the controversy, the criticism, and the immense doubt. They have boldly constructed a roster that they genuinely believe perfectly accentuates the generational brilliance of Luka Doncic, even if it meant ruthlessly sacrificing highly valuable, beloved assets along the way. As a dedicated basketball fan, you have to absolutely appreciate the sheer, unadulterated boldness of this organizational pivot. It is a massive high-wire act with absolutely zero safety net. If this incredible experiment works, Rob Pelinka will be universally hailed as an absolute visionary genius who successfully navigated the most difficult, treacherous transitional period in sports history. If it fails, the consequences will be absolutely disastrous, potentially plunging the most storied franchise in basketball into a massive, multi-year dark age. We want to hear your absolute, unfiltered thoughts on this historic development. Drop a comment down below and let us know where you stand. Were the Lakers absolutely right to ruthlessly let Rui Hachimura, Marcus Smart, and Luke Kennard walk away? Do you think the massive $130 million gamble on Walker Kessler will ultimately pay off? And most importantly, do you believe that this highly controversial new trio of Doncic, Reeves, and Kessler actually is what it takes to bring another incredibly coveted championship banner to Los Angeles? Make sure you completely smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel for daily, incredibly deep basketball analysis, and turn on those notification bells so you never ever miss an update as we continue to track this unbelievable, completely unfolding Lakers drama. Until next time, keep your eyes on the court because this upcoming NBA season is shaping up to be an absolute, undeniable classic. See you in the next one.